The celestial harp shudders violently, its ancient hull groaning under the weight of the nebula's relentless storms. Lyra grips the helm, her hands steady despite the chaos swirling around her. Outside, the nebula's colors shift and swirl: vivid purples, deep blues, and streaks of gold that seem alive, as if they're watching, waiting. Her crew murmurs behind her, their voices tinged with doubt. Is this worth it? One asks. The Starforge is a myth, another insists, but Lyra knows better. She's spent her entire life chasing the stories whispered among the stars, stories of a forge so powerful it could shape the very fabric of the universe. And now, with the nebulous storms closing in and the ship's systems flickering, she's closer than ever. But the question isn't just whether she can reach it, it's whether she can survive long enough to prove it exists. This is the story of Lyra, the Starborn Navigator, and the impossible choice she faces: turn back in life, or press forward and risk everything for the chance to rewrite the stars. The celestial harp lurches forward, breaking free from the nebula's suffocating embrace. For a moment, the crew breathes a collective sigh of relief, only to have it stolen away by the sight before them. The stars here are unfamiliar, their patterns strange and disorienting, as if the very fabric of space has been twisted. And there, floating in the void, is a derelict ship, its hull scarred and pitted, yet glowing faintly with symbols that seem to hum with an otherworldly energy. This shouldn't be here, Kale mutters, his voice tight with unease. He steps closer to Lyra, his hand gripping the hilt of his blade. We don't know what we're dealing with. This could be a trap, but Lyra's gaze is fixed on the symbols, her mind racing. They're unlike anything she's seen before, yet they feel familiar, as if they're calling to her. We have to investigate, she says, her voice firm. This could be a clue, something that leads us closer to the Starforge. Kael's protests fall on deaf ears as Lyra orders the crew to prepare a boarding party. She knows the risks, but the pull of discovery is too strong to ignore. The derelict ship is silent as they step aboard, the air thick with an oppressive stillness. Every step echoes, the sound swallowed by the vast emptiness around them. The corridors are dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of those strange symbols. And then they find it, a single artifact suspended in midair, pulsing with a rhythmic light that seems to beat in time with Lyra's heart. She reaches out, her fingers trembling, and Kale shouts a warning. But it's too late. The moment her hand brushes the artifact, the ship convulses, the symbols flaring with blinding light. A low, guttural rumble fills the air, growing louder and more menacing with each passing second. We need to go now, Kale yells, grabbing Lyra's arm and pulling her back. The crew scrambles for the exit as the derelict ship begins to crumble around them, its ancient structure unable to contain the energy now surging through it. They barely make it back to the celestial harp before the derelict implodes, collapsing into a swirling vortex of light and debris. Lyra stands at the helm, her hands clenched into fists, her mind racing. That artifact, it wasn't just a relic, it was a warning, and now, whatever she awakened, it's out there, waiting. But instead of fear, she feels a fire burning within her. The Starforge is real, and she's closer than ever to finding it. The crew may doubt her, but Lyra knows one thing for certain. Turning back isn't an option. Not anymore. The artifact's glow pulses faintly in Lyra's quarters, casting eerie shadows across the walls. She sits cross-legged on the floor, her hands resting on its surface, her breath shallow. Each time she touches it, the visions come, fragmented, chaotic glimpses of the Starforge. She sees towering spires of light, rivers of molten stardust, and a vast, shimmering forge that hums with the power of creation itself. But with the visions come whispers, soft and insidious, threading through her thoughts like smoke. You'll never find it, they hiss. You're leading them to their doom. She clenches her fists, trying to push the doubts aside, but they linger, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. Kale finds her like this, hunched over the artifact, her face pale and drawn. Lyra, he says, his voice sharp with frustration. This has gone far enough. Every decision you make puts us deeper into danger. For what? A myth, a dream. His words sting, not because they're unfair, but because a part of her fears he's right. She looks up at him, her eyes haunted. I'm not chasing a dream, she says, her voice low but steady. This artifact, it's showing me the way. The Starforge is real, Kael. I just need more time to understand it. But Kael isn't convinced. And what happens when that thing tears the ship apart? Or worse, tears you apart. He gestures to the artifact, its light flickering erratically. You're so focused on what's out there, you're forgetting what's right here. The crew trusts you, but you're testing that trust. Every second we spend chasing this fantasy, we're risking everything. Lyra hesitates, the weight of his words pressing down on her. She knows she can't do this alone. With a deep breath, she decides to share the visions with Kale, hoping it will bridge the gap between them. But when she describes the towering spires, the rivers of light, the forge that hums with the power of stars, his expression only hardens. You're seeing what you want to see, he says, his voice cold. This thing is playing with your mind, Lyra, and if you don't let it go, it's going to destroy us all. The tension between them is palpable, a crackling energy that threatens to ignite. But before either can say more, the ship shudders violently, the lights flickering as a warning klaxon blares. The artifact's energy is wreaking havoc on the celestial harp systems, overloading circuits and destabilizing the engines. Lyra rushes to the engine room, Kael close behind, his anger momentarily set aside as they work to stabilize the ship. As Lyra kneels beside a sparking control panel, her hands moving deftly to reroute power, she overhears fragments of a conversation from the corridor. Can't keep going like this, one crew member mutters. She's lost it. Another replies, if she won't turn back, maybe we should take matters into our own hands. Lyra's breath catches, her hands freezing mid-motion. Mutiny. The word hangs in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and foreboding. For a moment, she feels the weight of it all. The artifact's whispers, Kael's distrust, the crew's growing unease. But then she steels herself, her resolve hardening. She can't afford to falter now. The Starforge is out there, and she's closer than anyone has ever been. But the cost of reaching it may be higher than she ever imagined. The celestial harp emerges from the storm's edge, only to be met by a sight that stops the crew in their tracks. Ahead lies an asteroid field unlike any they've ever seen. Massive, jagged rocks floating in silence, each one glowing faintly with the same eerie energy as the artifact. The light pulses rhythmically, casting an otherworldly hue across the ship's bridge. Lyra steps forward, her eyes narrowing as she studies the field. "This isn't random," she murmurs, her voice quiet but filled with conviction. "These asteroids, they're connected to the artifact, to the Starforge. There's something here, something we need to find." Kale steps up beside her, his arms crossed, his expression tense. "Lyra, this is insane. That field is a death trap. Even if there's something in there, we don't have the firepower or the shields to survive it. We need to find another way." His words are firm, his tone edged with frustration. But Lyra shakes her head, her jaw set. "We've come this far," she says, her voice steady. "We can't turn back now. This is the path the artifact has shown us. I won't let fear stop us." The crew exchanges uneasy glances, their murmurs growing louder. Some nod in agreement with Lyra, their faith in her unwavering. Others side with Kale, their faces etched with doubt. The tension is palpable, a storm brewing within the ship's walls. But Lyra doesn't hesitate. She grips the helm, her hands steady as she steers the celestial harp toward the asteroid field. "Hold your positions," she orders. "We're going in." The field is even more treacherous up close. The glowing rocks loom like giants, their surfaces jagged and unpredictable. The ship's sensors struggle to map a safe path, the energy from the asteroids interfering with the systems. Lyra navigates with precision, her movements sharp and deliberate. But even her skill isn't enough to avoid danger entirely. A rogue asteroid streaks past the ship's hull, its jagged edge scraping against the celestial harp with a deafening screech. The impact sends a shudder through the ship, alarms blaring as the crew scrambles to assess the damage. "Hull breach on deck 3, someone shouts. 2 crew members down. They need medical attention now." Lyra's heart pounds as she watches the chaos unfold. Kale turns to her, his eyes blazing. "This is what I was talking about," he snaps. "You're risking everything, our lives, the ship, for some half-baked theory. And for what? To prove you're right." His words cut deep, but Lyra doesn't flinch. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," she says, her voice rising to match his. "But I won't let fear dictate our path. We're close, Kale. I can feel it." The crew watches the exchange, their loyalty wavering. Some nod in agreement with Lyra, their determination reignited by her resolve. Others glance at Kale, their expressions filled with uncertainty. The ship groans under the strain, the damaged hull struggling to hold together. But Lyra doesn't back down. "We press forward," she orders, her voice firm. "We didn't come this far to turn back now." Kale steps closer, his voice low and urgent. "This isn't just about you, Lyra. It's about all of us, and if you keep pushing like this, you're going to get us all killed." The tension between them crackles, the weight of their shared history and conflicting ideals pressing down like a storm. But Lyra holds her ground, her eyes locked with his. "I'll do whatever it takes to find the Starforge," she says, her voice unwavering, "with or without your support." As the celestial harp presses deeper into the asteroid field, the glow of the rocks grows brighter, their energy pulsing in time with the artifact. but the cost of Lyra's determination is becoming clearer with every passing moment. The crew's trust is fraying, the damage to the ship mounting, and the stakes higher than ever. And as the tension between Lyra and Kale reaches its breaking point, the question hangs heavy in the air. Will this journey bring them closer to the Starforge, or will it tear them apart before they even reach it? The celestial harp finally breaks free from the asteroid field, its battered hull groaning in protest as the last glowing rocks drift away behind them. The crew exhales in relief, but the tension doesn't ease not when the massive structure ahead comes into view. A colossal gateway, ancient and weathered, floats in the void, its surface etched with the same glowing symbols as the artifact. The air on the bridge grows heavy, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone. Lyra steps forward, her eyes fixed on the gateway. "This is it," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's struggling engines. The artifact, it's reacting to it. In her hands, the artifact pulses with an erratic light, its energy surging as if it recognizes the gateway. The crew watches in silence, their unease palpable. Kale steps beside her, his expression grim. "Lyra, this is madness. That thing is a relic from a time we don't understand. You're gambling with all our lives on a hunch." His voice is sharp, but there's a flicker of something deeper. Fear, maybe, or desperation. He knows what's at stake, and it's not just the ship. Lyra doesn't look at him. Her focus is on the gateway, her mind racing through the possibilities. "It's not a hunch," she says, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. "The artifact is showing me the way. This gateway, it's the key to the Starforge. If we can activate it, we'll find what we've been searching for." Kael shakes his head, his frustration boiling over. "And what if it kills us first? Look at the ship, Lyra. We're barely holding together. You're asking us to risk everything on this." This gamble. His words hang in the air, the crew's murmurs of agreement echoing his sentiment. But Lyra doesn't waver. She turns to face him, her eyes blazing with determination. "We don't have a choice, Kale. The artifact's energy is destabilizing the ship. If we don't find the Starforge, it won't matter if we turn back. We'll be dead either way." The silence that follows is deafening. The crew exchanges uneasy glances, the weight of Lyra's words sinking in. She steps forward, her voice rising to fill the bridge. "I know this isn't easy. I know it's dangerous, but I also know this is our only chance. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything, and I won't let that happen." Her tone is firm, unyielding, but there's a vulnerability there too, a plea for them to trust her one last time. Kael looks at her, his jaw clenched, but he doesn't argue. He knows her well enough to see there's no talking her out of this. Instead, he nods, his voice low. "Fine, but if this goes wrong, it's on you." The words sting, but Lyra accepts them. She turns back to the helm, her hands steady as she begins the sequence to channel the artifact's energy into the gateway. The crew scrambles to their stations, their movements tense but purposeful. The artifact's light grows brighter, its energy surging through the ship's systems. Alarms blare as the power levels spike, the strain threatening to overload the celestial harp's fragile infrastructure. Lyra's hands fly over the controls, her focus absolute. Steady, she mutters, more to herself than anyone else. Just a little more. With a final surge, the artifact's energy connects with the gateway. The ancient structure comes alive, its symbols blazing with light as a low, resonant hum fills the void. For a moment, the crew dares to hope, but then the ship lurches violently, caught in a sudden gravitational pull. The gateway's light intensifies, swallowing the celestial harp in its glow. We're caught in a drag field. Someone shouts, their voice panicked. We can't break free. Lyra grips the helm, her heart pounding as the ship is pulled inexorably toward the gateway. The crew's shouts blend with the cacophony of alarms, but her mind is eerily calm. This is it, the point of no return. The light grows brighter, the pull stronger, until the ship is enveloped completely. And then, with a blinding flash, the celestial harp is gone, dragged into the unknown depths of space. When the light fades, the crew finds themselves in a region of space, unlike anything they've ever seen. Strange constellations shimmer in the distance, their patterns shifting and twisting as if alive. The gateway looms behind them, its light dimming as it seals shut. The crew stares in stunned silence, their disbelief giving way to a mix of awe and trepidation. Lyra steps forward, her voice soft but filled with resolve. We're here, she says. This is where the artifact has been leading us. This is where we'll find the Starforge. But as the ship drifts further into the unknown, the question lingers, unspoken but felt by all. What lies ahead, and at what cost? The gateway has brought them here, but the path forward is shrouded in mystery and danger. And for Lyra, the weight of her choices presses heavier than ever. The Starforge may be within reach, but the price of reaching it could eclipse even her wildest fears. The crew stirs slowly, their senses disoriented as they awaken in a realm that defies all logic. The air, if it can even be called air, shimmers with an iridescent glow, and the ground beneath them feels solid yet weightless, as though they're walking on a surface that doesn't fully exist. The stars here don't twinkle, they pulse, their light bending and twisting in impossible ways. Lyra rises to her feet, her breath catching as she takes in the surreal landscape. This isn't just another corner of the galaxy, it's something far stranger, far more ancient, the heart of the Nebula, a place where reality itself seems to unravel and reweave at the edges. The artifact in her hands hums with an almost feverish intensity, its light casting long, shifting shadows across the ground. It feels heavier now, as though it's drawing energy from the very fabric of this realm. As Lyra holds it, a cascade of visions floods her mind, scenes of creation and destruction, of stars being born and dying in the same breath. She sees the Starforge, not as a tool, but as a force of nature, its spires reaching into the void like the fingers of a god. The visions are overwhelming, intoxicating, and for a moment, she forgets where she is, lost in the sheer magnitude of what she's glimpsed. Lyra, Kael's voice snaps her back to the present. He's standing a few paces away, his expression tight with concern. You've been staring into space for minutes. What's going on? His eyes flick to the artifact, its light flickering erratically. That thing, it's not just showing you visions, is it? It's changing you. Can't you feel it? She shakes her head, brushing off his concern. It's showing me the truth, Kale. The Starforge isn't just a myth. It's real, and it's more powerful than we ever imagined. This is what we've been searching for. Her voice is steady, but there's a feverish edge to it, a hunger that wasn't there before. Kale doesn't miss it. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You're not thinking clearly. That thing is messing with your head. We need to get out of here before it's too late. But Lyra doesn't respond. Her focus is already shifting, her attention drawn to the spectral figures materializing in the distance. They're unlike anything she's ever seen. Tall, shimmering beings with forms that seem to shift and blur, as though they're not entirely part of this reality. Their voices echo in her mind, soft but urgent. You tread on dangerous ground, they warn. The Starforge is not a gift, it is a curse. To wield it is to invite destruction. The crew watches in silence, their unease growing with each passing moment. Even Kale hesitates, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade, as though it might protect him from beings that seem to exist beyond the physical. But Lyra steps forward, her voice steady despite the otherworldly presence before her. We didn't come this far to turn back now, she says, her tone defiant. If the Starforge is a curse, then we'll find a way to break it, but I won't leave without seeing it for myself. The spectral figures regard her in silence, their forms flickering like candle flames in the wind. For a moment, it seems they might say more, but then they simply fade, their warning lingering in the air like a shadow. The crew exhales, the tension easing slightly, but the weight of the moment remains. Kael turns to Lyra, his voice low and urgent. Listen to yourself. You're not the same person who started this journey. That artifact, it's changing you. Can't you see that? Lyra meets his gaze, her eyes blazing with a mix of determination and something darker, something that sends a chill down his spine. Maybe I am changing, she says, her voice quiet but firm. But if that's what it takes to reach the Starforge, then so be it. I won't stop now, not when we're this close. The crew exchanges uneasy glances, their loyalty to Lyra warring with their growing fear. They've followed her this far, but the stakes have never been higher. As they press forward into the dreamlike realm, the artifact's glow grows brighter, its energy intertwining with Lyra's own. The visions intensify, the line between reality and illusion blurring with each step. But for Lyra, the path is clear. The Starforge is within reach, and nothing, not the warnings, not the risks, not even the growing rift between her and Kael, will stop her from claiming it. As they move deeper into the heart of the nebula, the realm itself seems to respond, the air thickening with an almost palpable tension. The crew can feel it, the pull of the Starforge, the weight of its power, and the shadow of its curse. And as Lyra leads them further into the unknown, one question hangs over them all. What will it cost to reach the Starforge, and who will pay the price? The air grows heavier as the crew presses forward, the iridescent glow of the realm casting long, shifting shadows that seem to stretch endlessly. Ahead, rising from the shimmering ground, is a structure so vast it defies comprehension, a crystalline monolith that towers into the infinite sky, its surface reflecting the fractured light of the nebula like a prism. The crew stops in their tracks, their breath catching in unison. This is it, the Starforge. Its presence is overwhelming, a tangible force that seems to hum with the power of creation itself. But as they draw closer, they realize the path to it is barred not by walls or gates, but by something far more insidious, a series of intricate puzzles, their patterns etched into the crystalline ground like ancient runes. Lyra steps forward, her eyes narrowing as she studies the first puzzle. The artifact in her hands pulses faintly, its light flickering in time with the symbols beneath her feet. These aren't just obstacles, she murmurs, her voice tinged with awe. They're tests. The Starforge isn't just a place, it's a trial, and if we want to reach it, we'll have to prove we're worthy. Her words are met with uneasy silence. The crew exchanges glances, their unease palpable. They've come this far, but the stakes have never felt higher. Kale steps up beside her, his arms crossed, his expression grim. Prove we're worthy, or prove we're reckless enough to keep going. His tone is sharp, his frustration boiling over. Lyra, this is insanity. We don't even know what we're dealing with. What if these tests are designed to kill us? She turns to him, her jaw set. Then we'll figure it out. Together, her voice is firm, but there's a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She knows Kael's right about the risks, about the uncertainty, but she also knows there's no turning back now. The first puzzle is deceptively simple, a series of rotating discs, each marked with glowing symbols that seem to shift and change as they move. Lyra kneels beside it, her fingers tracing the patterns as the artifact hums faintly in her hands. It's a sequence, she says, her voice low. We need to align the symbols in the right order. She begins to turn the discs, her movements deliberate but confident. But as the puzzle nears completion, the artifact's light grows erratic, its energy surging unpredictably. The discs spin faster, their symbols blurring into chaos. Lyra's brow furrows, her hands trembling as she struggles to regain control. Something's wrong, she mutters, her voice tight with panic. It's not working. Before she can react, the puzzle explodes in a burst of light, the force of it throwing her backward. Kale lunges forward, grabbing her arm and yanking her out of harm's way, just as a jagged shard of crystal embeds itself in the ground where she'd been standing. The crew stares in stunned silence, the reality of their situation sinking in. Kale turns to Lyra, his eyes blazing. That thing, he snaps, gesturing to the artifact, is going to get us all killed. You're so focused on what it's showing you, you're not seeing what's right in front of you. Lyra's breath is ragged, her hands trembling as she clutches the artifact. I thought I could trust it, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought it was leading us to the Starforge. Kale's expression softens, but only for a moment. It's not the artifact you need to trust, he says, his voice low and urgent. It's us, the crew, me. You're not in this alone, Lyra. But if you keep shutting us out, if you keep relying on that thing instead of the people who have been with you from the start, we're all going to pay the price. The tension between them is thick, the weight of their shared history and conflicting ideals pressing down like a storm, but there's no time to dwell on it. The puzzles grow more complex with each step, their solutions requiring not just knowledge, but unity. The crew is forced to work together, their skills and instincts tested in ways they've never imagined. But the strain is taking its toll. As the challenges mount, so do the whispers of dissent. Some crew members begin to openly question Lyra's leadership, their loyalty fraying under the pressure. She's leading us to our deaths. One mutters, their voice low but laced with anger. We trusted her, and look where it's gotten us. Lyra hears the whispers, feels the weight of their doubt pressing down on her. But she doesn't falter. She can't. The Starforge is within reach, and she knows the cost of failure is too high to bear. As she steps up to the next puzzle, her resolve hardens. She'll prove herself, to the crew, to Kale, to the Starforge itself. But as the puzzles grow more treacherous and the fractures within the crew deepen, one question lingers. Will they reach the Starforge together, or will the journey tear them apart before they even get there? The closer they get to the Starforge, the more the artifact's influence tightens its grip on Lyra. Its light pulses erratically, casting jagged shadows that seem to twist and writhe around her. At first, the visions are fleeting glimpses of her crew, whispering behind her back, their faces contorted with mistrust. But soon, the images grow more vivid, more insidious. She sees Kael turning his blade against her, hears the crew plotting to mutiny, feels the weight of their betrayal like a knife in her chest. The lines between reality and illusion blur, leaving her unsure of what's real and what's a fabrication of the artifact's power. One moment, she's certain she hears Kael's voice, low and conspiratorial, as he speaks to the crew about overthrowing her. The next, she blinks, and he's standing alone, his expression filled with concern. "Lyra," he says, his voice cutting through the haze in her mind. "You've been staring at nothing for minutes. What's going on?" His words should comfort her, but all she feels is suspicion. The artifact hums in her hands, its light flickering like a heartbeat. "You're lying to me," she says, her voice tight. "You're all lying to me." Kael steps closer, his brow furrowed. "Listen to yourself. You're not thinking clearly. That thing, it's messing with your head. You need to let it go before it's too late." His tone is urgent, pleading, but Lyra shakes her head, her grip on the artifact tightening. "I can't," she says, her voice trembling. "It's the only way to reach the Starforge. I won't stop now." The crew watches the exchange in uneasy silence, their unease growing with each passing moment. They've followed Lyra this far, but the cracks in her resolve are becoming impossible to ignore. One by one, they begin to distance themselves, their whispers growing louder as they question her leadership. "She's losing it," someone mutters. "We're following her straight into a death trap." Kael's frustration boils over. "Lyra, look at what's happening." The crew is falling apart. You're falling apart. This artifact, it's not just showing you the way, it's consuming you. If you don't destroy it now, it's going to destroy all of us. His words are sharp, his tone cutting through the chaos in her mind. For a moment, she hesitates, her resolve wavering, but then the artifact pulses, its light flooding her vision with another cascade of images. The Starforge, its spires glowing with the power of creation, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. The visions are intoxicating, irresistible. She can't turn back now. With a deep breath, she straightens, her jaw set. "I'm sorry, Kael. I can't destroy it." "Not when we're this close." Her voice is steady, but there's a hardness to it that wasn't there before. Kael stares at her, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "You're choosing that thing over us?" he asks, his voice low and dangerous. "Over me?" The question hangs in the air, heavy and unspoken. Lyra doesn't answer. She can't. Instead, she turns away, her focus shifting to the path ahead. The crew watches in stunned silence, their loyalty fraying under the weight of her decision. Some exchange glances, their expressions filled with doubt. Others turn to Kale, seeking guidance. But Lyra doesn't look back. She can't afford to. The Starforge is within reach, and she's willing to pay any price to claim it. As they press forward, the air grows heavier, the artifact's light casting long, jagged shadows that seem to follow them like silent sentinels. The crew's murmurs grow louder, their fear and frustration bubbling to the surface. But Lyra doesn't hear them. Her mind is consumed by the artifact's visions, her perception of reality twisting and distorting with each step. She knows the cost of her choice, the growing rift between her and Kale, the crew's crumbling morale, the danger that lies ahead. But for Lyra, there's no other path. The Starforge is calling, and she's determined to answer, no matter the cost. The crew's footsteps echo in the silence, their unease palpable as they move deeper into the heart of the nebula. The artifact's light pulses faintly, its energy intertwining with Lyra's own. She can feel its power surging through her, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. But as the visions grow darker and the path ahead more treacherous, one question lingers. Will the Starforge be her salvation or her undoing? The air grows still as the crew steps into the shadow of the Starforge. Its sheer enormity defies comprehension, a towering monument of crystalline spires, each one pulsing with a light that seems to breathe in rhythm with the cosmos. The structure hums with an energy that reverberates through the ground, through the air, through their very bones. Lyra stands frozen, her eyes wide with awe. It's more incredible than I ever imagined, she whispers, her voice barely audible over the low, resonant hum of the forge. The artifact in her hands glows brighter, its light syncing with the Starforge's pulse, as if the two are connected by an invisible thread. Kale steps forward, his expression grim. Incredible, Lyra, this thing is a weapon. Look at it. It's not just power, it's destruction waiting to happen. His voice is sharp, cutting through the awe that's gripped the crew. He gestures to the forge, his hand trembling slightly. You think you can control this? That thing in your hands is already tearing you apart. What makes you think you can handle whatever this is? His words hang in the air, heavy with warning. But Lyra doesn't look at him. Her gaze is fixed on the Starforge, her mind racing with possibilities. As she steps closer, the artifact's light intensifies, its energy surging through her like a current. Suddenly, her vision blurs, the world around her dissolving into a cascade of images. She sees an ancient civilization, their forms blurred by time, their hands crafting the Starforge from the raw essence of stars. She feels their desperation, their ambition, their belief that this creation would save them. But then the vision shifts. The Starforge, once a beacon of hope, becomes a harbinger of doom. The civilization tears itself apart, consumed by the very power they sought to control. The forge collapses, its light fading as the civilization vanishes into dust. The vision ends abruptly, leaving Lyra gasping for air, her hands trembling as she clutches the artifact. Kale grabs her arm, his grip firm. Lyra, what happened? What did you see? His voice is urgent, his eyes searching hers. She looks at him, her expression haunted. They destroyed themselves, she says, her voice shaking. The Starforge, it's not just a tool, it's a curse. They thought they could control it, but it consumed them. The crew watches in stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking in. Kael's grip tightens. Then why are we still here? If this thing is as dangerous as you say, we need to leave, now. But Lyra shakes her head, her resolve hardening. No, we can't leave, not when we're this close. She steps forward, her eyes locked on the Starforge. The artifact. It's showing me how to control it. I can do this, I have to. Her voice is steady, but there's a desperation in her tone that wasn't there before. Kale stares at her, his frustration boiling over. You're not listening to yourself. You're not the same person who started this journey. That artifact, it's changing you. Can't you see that? Before she can respond, the artifact's light flares violently, its energy surging out of control. The ground beneath them trembles, cracks spreading like spiderwebs through the crystalline surface. The Starforge's hum grows louder, more erratic, its light flickering as if it's struggling to contain its own power. We need to go, Kale shouts, his voice barely audible over the growing chaos. The crew scrambles, their movements frantic as the structure begins to collapse around them. Lyra hesitates, her eyes still fixed on the Starforge. For a moment, it seems she might stay, might risk everything for the chance to claim its power. But then Kale grabs her arm, yanking her back just as a massive crystal shard crashes to the ground where she'd been standing. Move, he shouts, his voice raw with urgency. She stumbles, her grip on the artifact tightening as the crew rushes toward the exit. Behind them, the Starforge begins to crumble, its spires collapsing in a cascade of light and debris. They barely make it out, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the structure implodes behind them. The crew collapses in exhaustion, their breath ragged, their faces pale with shock. Lyra stares at the ruins of the Starforge, her hands still clutching the artifact. Its light has dimmed, its energy spent, but its weight feels heavier than ever. Kale steps up beside her, his voice low and tense. This ends here, Lyra, that thing. It's too dangerous, we can't keep going like this. She doesn't respond. Her mind is still caught in the vision, the echoes of the ancient civilization's downfall ringing in her ears. The Starforge is gone, but its power and its curse lingers. And as Lyra stares at the ruins, one question burns in her mind. Was it worth it? The crew watches her in silence, their loyalty frayed, their trust shaken. The journey has cost them more than they ever imagined, and the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty. But for Lyra, the pull of discovery, of power, remains unbroken. Even in the face of destruction, the stars still call to her, and she's not sure she can resist. The ground beneath Lyra trembles violently as the crew scrambles to safety, their shouts drowned out by the deafening roar of the collapsing Starforge. Dust and debris rain down around her, but she doesn't move. Her legs feel like lead, her mind caught in a storm of thoughts and emotions. The artifact in her hands pulses faintly, its light flickering like a dying flame. She stares at it, her breath shallow, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers grow louder, their voices a chaotic chorus of doubt and fear. You failed them, they hiss. You failed yourself. All of this for nothing. The air around her shifts, the world dissolving into a haze of light and shadow. Suddenly, she's no longer standing in the ruins of the Starforge. She's back on the celestial harp, the ship's bridge filled with the faces of her crew, faces twisted with anger, fear, and betrayal. She sees herself through their eyes, her obsession with the artifact driving a wedge between them. Kael's voice echoes in her mind, sharp and accusing. You chose this over us, over me. The words cut deeper than any blade, the weight of his disappointment crushing her. The vision shifts again, and she's standing in the ruins of her childhood home, the place where her journey began. Her younger self stares up at her, wide-eyed and hopeful, clutching a crude map of the stars. You wanted to find something greater, the child says, her voice trembling. But what did you lose along the way? Lyra's chest tightens, the question piercing through her defenses. She looks away, but the visions don't stop. They come faster now, more vivid, more relentless. She sees every mistake, every moment she prioritized the artifact over the people who trusted her. The whispers grow louder, more insistent. You're not strong enough. You never were. Her hands tremble as she clutches the artifact, its light flickering erratically. The weight of her failures presses down on her, threatening to crush her under their enormity. She closes her eyes, trying to block out the voices, but they're inside her now, weaving through her thoughts like a poison. Give up, they urge. It's easier that way. For a moment, she considers it. The temptation to surrender, to let the artifact take control, is overwhelming. But then she hears a voice, soft but unmistakable. Kael's voice. You're not alone, Lyra. You never were. The words cut through the chaos, a lifeline in the storm. She opens her eyes, her breath catching as she stares at the artifact. Its light pulses faintly, but now she sees it for what it truly is, a mirror reflecting her fears, her doubts, her darkest impulses. It's not a tool, it's a trap, and she's been its prisoner all along. Her hands tighten around it, her resolve hardening. No, she whispers, her voice trembling but firm. I won't let you control me anymore. With a surge of strength, she raises the artifact above her head and hurls it to the ground. The impact sends a shockwave through the air, the artifact shattering into 1,000 shards of light. The whispers cease abruptly, the oppressive weight lifting from her chest. For a moment, there's silence, and then the Starforge begins to collapse in earnest, its crystalline spires crumbling as the ground beneath her feet gives way. She stumbles, her breath ragged, her body trembling with exhaustion. But for the first time in what feels like forever, her mind is clear. As the world around her falls apart, she realizes what she must do. The Starforge's power was never hers to claim. It was a test, a trial to see if she could rise above her own ambition, her own fears. And now, with the artifact destroyed and the forge collapsing around her, she knows the true cost of her obsession. She's lost so much of her crew's trust, Kael's faith, even a part of herself. But she's still here, and that means she still has a choice. The ground beneath her cracks, the void below threatening to swallow her whole. But she doesn't run, she doesn't falter. Instead, she takes a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. The Starforge may be gone, but the journey isn't over. Not yet. She turns and begins to run, her steps sure and steady, her heart pounding with a newfound determination. She doesn't know what lies ahead, but she knows one thing for certain. She won't face it alone. She'll find her crew, she'll make things right, and she'll prove that she's more than the sum of her mistakes. The stars may have led her here, but it's her choices that will guide her home. Lyra stumbles onto the celestial harp, her breath ragged, her body trembling from the exertion of escape. The crew turns to her, their expressions a mix of relief and unease. Kale is the first to speak, his voice low and tense. "You made it," he says, his tone more cautious than celebratory. Lyra meets his gaze, her chest tightening with guilt. I'm sorry," she says, her voice cracking under the weight of her words. "I let my obsession blind me. I put all of you in danger, and she pauses, swallowing hard. "I almost lost everything." Kale studies her for a long moment, his jaw clenched. Finally, he sighs, his shoulders slumping slightly. "You're here now." That's what matters. His words are quiet, but the undercurrent of frustration is impossible to miss. The crew watches the exchange, their silence heavy with unspoken questions. They are relieved she's alive, but the trust that once bound them together feels frayed, fragile. The ship groans around them, its systems flickering as damage reports flood the control panels. "We're adrift," one of the crew members says, their voice tight with urgency. "Engines are down, and the hull's taken a beating. If we don't get moving soon, we're sitting targets." Lyra nods, her mind racing. "I'll help," she says, stepping toward the nearest console. Kale stops her with a hand on her arm. "You need to rest," he says, his tone firm but not unkind. "We've got this. Just be here. That's enough for now." As the crew scrambles to repair the ship, the air grows thick with tension. The camaraderie that once defined them feels distant now, replaced by a wary silence. Lyra watches them work, her guilt gnawing at her. She wants to say more, to explain herself, but the words stick in her throat. How do you apologize for nearly costing everyone their lives? Before she can find the words, the air on the bridge shifts, a faint hum filling the space. The spectral beings from earlier materialize, their forms shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The crew freezes, their tools clattering to the ground as the beings speak, their voices echoing in unison. The Starforge's destruction has unleashed chaos, they announce, their tone grave. The Nebula is destabilizing. If it collapses, it will consume everything within its reach. Lyra steps forward, her heart pounding. What can we do to stop it? She asks, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. The beings regard her in silence for a moment before responding. The Starforge was a keystone, holding this region of space together. Without it, the nebula will unravel. You must find a way to restore balance, or flee before it's too late. The crew exchanges uneasy glances, the weight of the situation sinking in. Kale turns to Lyra, his expression unreadable. "You heard them," he says, his voice low. "We need to make a choice, and this time, it's not just about you." His words sting, but they are fair. She nods, her mind racing. "We'll figure this out," she says, her voice firm. Together, as the crew works to stabilize the ship, the spectral beings fade, their warning lingering in the air. The path ahead is uncertain, the stakes higher than ever. But for the first time in what feels like forever, Lyra feels a sense of clarity. The Starforge may be gone, but its legacy, and the choices it forced her to confront, will shape their journey from here on out. The crew's trust may be fragile, but it's not beyond repair. And as they face the threat of the collapsing nebula, Lyra knows one thing for certain: they'll need each other more than ever. The celestial harp shudders violently as it plunges deeper into the collapsing nebula, its hull groaning under the strain of the chaotic forces swirling around them. Outside, the once vivid colors of the nebula have turned into a maelstrom of jagged light and shadow, the storms growing more ferocious with every passing moment. The crew scrambles to their stations, their faces pale but determined. Lyra grips the helm, her eyes scanning the erratic energy readings on the console. "We need to find a stable path through this," she says, her voice steady despite the chaos. "If we don't, we'll be torn apart." Kale steps up beside her, his arms crossed, his expression tense. "And how do you propose we do that?" he asks, his tone sharp but not dismissive. "This isn't just a storm, Lyra. It's the nebula itself unraveling. We're flying blind." She glances at him, her jaw set. "Not blind," she says, her voice firm. "I've studied this nebula for years, its patterns, its anomalies. I know them better than anyone. If we can find the right current, we can ride it to safety." Her words are met with silence, the crew exchanging uneasy glances. They've followed her this far, but the stakes have never been higher. Kale studies her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he exhales sharply and nods. "All right, let's see what you've got." The tension between them is still there, but it's tempered by necessity. They don't have the luxury of mistrust, not now. Lyra's hands move deftly over the controls, her focus absolute. She adjusts the ship's trajectory, steering it toward a faint, shimmering current that winds through the chaos like a thread of light. The crew holds their breath as the ship lurches forward, the hull creaking ominously. But then, miraculously, the turbulence lessens. The current holds, guiding them through the worst of the storm. A murmur of relief ripples through the crew, their confidence in Lyra slowly beginning to rebuild. But the respite is short-lived. Ahead, the current forks, splitting into two paths that twist and writhe like serpents. One is faint and steady, the other bright but erratic. Lyra hesitates, her brow furrowed. "Which one do we take?" one of the crew members asks, their voice tight with anxiety. Kale steps closer, his eyes scanning the readings. "The brighter one looks faster," he says, his tone cautious. "But fast doesn't mean safe." Lyra nods, her mind racing. She knows the risks of both paths, but time is a luxury they don't have. The nebula's instability is growing, its energy surges becoming more unpredictable. "We take the steady one," she says finally, her voice firm. "It's the safer bet." Kale glances at her, his expression softening slightly. "Agreed," he says, his tone quiet but decisive. It's the first time in a long while that they've been on the same page, and the significance isn't lost on either of them. As the ship follows the steady current, the crew works together with renewed focus. Kale takes charge of the engine room, his steady hands rerouting power to the shields as Lyra navigates the treacherous path. The dynamic between them shifts, the tension giving way to a fragile but growing sense of cooperation. Engines are holding. Kale reports over the comms, his voice calm. But we're pushing them to their limits. We need to find a way out of this soon. Lyra's grip tightens on the helm as she steers the ship through a narrow gap between two massive energy surges. We're close, she says, her voice tight with concentration. Just a little further, the crew watches in tense silence, their trust in Lyra's leadership tested with every passing second, but she doesn't falter. Her knowledge of the Nebula, hard-earned through years of study and exploration, guides them through the chaos with a precision that's impossible to ignore. Finally, the ship emerges from the worst of the storm, the nebula's chaotic energy receding behind them. The crew exhales in unison, their relief palpable. But the victory is short-lived. The nebula's collapse is far from over, and its instability threatens to consume everything in its path. Lyra stares at the readings, her expression grim. "We've bought ourselves some time," she says, her voice low. "But if we don't find a way to stabilize the nebula, it won't matter how far we run." Kale steps up beside her, his arms crossed. "So what's the plan?" he asks, his tone more curious than confrontational. Lyra hesitates, her mind racing. "We need to find the source of the instability," she says finally. "If we can understand what's causing it, maybe we can stop it." The crew watches her, their expressions a mix of hope and apprehension. It's a daunting task, but for the first time in a long while, they feel like a team again. And as they set their course for the heart of the nebula, one thing is clear. The journey ahead will test them like never before, but together, they just might have a chance. The celestial harp hovers at the edge of the collapsing nebula, its engines idling as the crew gathers on the bridge. Outside, the once stunning colors of the nebula churn violently, a chaotic swirl of light and shadow that threatens to consume everything in its path. Lyra stands at the helm, her gaze fixed on the destruction ahead. She knows they're running out of time. The crew watches her in tense silence, their faces etched with a mix of exhaustion and fear. Finally, Lyra turns to face them, her voice steady but urgent. "We can't outrun this," she says. "The nebula's instability is spreading too fast. If we don't do something, it's going to destroy everything, including us." Kale steps forward, his arms crossed, his expression skeptical. "And what exactly do you propose we do? We barely made it out of there alive last time." His tone is sharp, but there's a flicker of curiosity behind his words. Lyra takes a deep breath, her mind racing through the possibilities. "The Starforge's energy is still out there," she says. "If we can harness what's left of it, we might be able to stabilize the nebula. It's risky, but it's our only chance." The crew murmurs uneasily, their hesitation palpable. "You're talking about going back to the ruins," one of them says, their voice tight with anxiety. "After everything that happened, it's suicide." Lyra nods, acknowledging their fear. "I know it's dangerous," she says, her tone softening. "But if we don't try, we're condemning ourselves and countless others to destruction. I won't force anyone to come with me, but I'm asking for your trust." One last time. For a moment, no one speaks. The weight of the decision hangs heavy in the air. Then slowly, one by one, the crew nods. Kale is the last to agree, his jaw clenched as he meets Lyra's gaze. This better work, he says, his voice low. Because if it doesn't, we're all dead anyway. Lyra gives him a small, grateful smile. It will, she says, though the doubt in her eyes betrays her confidence. As the ship turns back toward the ruins, the tension on the bridge is almost tangible. The crew works in silence, their movements precise but strained. Kale takes his place at the engine controls, his hands steady despite the unease in his expression. We're approaching the ruins, he says, his voice cutting through the quiet. Sensors are picking up residual energy signatures. It's faint, but it's there. The Starforge's remains come into view, a jagged silhouette against the swirling chaos of the nebula. The once majestic structure is now little more than a shattered husk, its crystalline spires broken and scattered. But even in its ruined state, the forge hums with a faint, otherworldly energy. Lyra steps forward, her heart pounding. This is it, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to channel what's left of its power back into the nebula. It's the only way to restore balance. As the crew works to set up the energy conduits, the air around them shifts. The spectral beings materialize once more, their forms shimmering with an ethereal light. Their voices echo in unison, low and resonant. You have returned, they say, their tone unreadable. Why do you seek the ruins of the Starforge? Lyra steps forward, her hands trembling slightly as she meets their gaze. We didn't come for power, she says, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. We came to fix what we broke. The nebula is collapsing, and if we don't stabilize it, everything will be lost. The beings regard her in silence for a moment before responding. The Starforge's destruction has unleashed chaos, they say. Its energy was a keystone, holding this region of space together. Without it, the nebula will unravel. Lyra nods, her heart sinking. We know, she says, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to set things right. But we need your help. The spectral figures exchange a glance, their forms flickering like candle flames in the wind. We will aid you, they say finally. But in exchange, you must swear an oath. Never seek the Starforge's power again. Its secrets are not meant for mortals, and its curse will consume all who try to wield it. The crew watches in stunned silence, the weight of the being's words sinking in. Lyra hesitates, her mind racing. The Starforge's power has been the driving force behind her journey, the promise of its secrets fueling her every decision. To give it up now feels like admitting defeat, but as she looks at the crumbling ruins and the chaos surrounding them, she realizes the truth. Some things are better left untouched. With a deep breath, she nods. We swear it, she says, her voice firm. The Starforge's power will remain a mystery. We'll never seek it again. The spectral beings incline their heads, their forms glowing brighter as they begin to channel the remnants of the Starforge's energy into the nebula. The air around them hums with power, the chaotic swirls of light and shadow slowly beginning to stabilize. The crew watches in awe as the nebula's turbulence lessens, its colors shifting back to their original, vibrant hues. The tension on the bridge eases, replaced by a sense of cautious relief. Kale steps up beside Lyra, his expression unreadable. You did it, he says, his voice quiet. But at what cost? Lyra looks at him, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and resolve. The cost was too high, she admits, but sometimes You have to let go of the things you want most to protect the things that matter most. Kale studies her for a moment before nodding, his expression softening. Maybe, he says, but at least we made it through, together. As the celestial harp drifts away from the ruins, the crew watches the nebula's restored beauty in silence. The journey has cost them more than they ever imagined, but it's also taught them a valuable lesson. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed, and some powers, no matter how alluring, are better left in the dark. For Lyra, the pull of the stars will always remain, but now she knows the true cost of chasing their secrets. And as the ship sails into the calm, starry expanse, she feels a sense of peace she hasn't known in years. The journey isn't over, but for the first time, she's ready to face it, not as a seeker of power, but as a protector of what truly matters. The celestial harp shudders as it hovers near the ruins of the Starforge, its engines straining against the violent currents of the collapsing nebula. Lyra stands at the center of the bridge, her hands moving swiftly over the control panels as she directs the crew. The remnants of the Starforge pulse faintly in the distance, their energy flickering like a dying flame. "We need to align the conduits perfectly," she says, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "If we're even slightly off, the energy surge could tear the ship apart." Kale steps forward, his expression tense but focused. "I'll handle the power relays," he says, his tone clipped but cooperative. "But we need to move fast." The nebula's storms are getting worse. The crew exchanges uneasy glances, but there's no time for hesitation. They've come too far to falter now. The bridge is a flurry of activity as the crew works together, their movements precise and deliberate. Lyra and Kale coordinate in silence, their past conflicts momentarily set aside. The artifact's whispers may have been silenced, but the weight of their shared history lingers, unspoken but felt. Still, there's no room for doubt. The stakes are too high. As the conduits align, the ship groans under the strain of the energy transfer. The nebula's storms grow more violent, their chaotic energy lashing against the hull like a living thing. Warning lights flash across the console as the ship's systems begin to overload. "We're losing power to the shields," someone shouts, their voice tight with panic. Lyra's hands fly over the controls, her movements sharp and decisive. "Reroute everything to the conduits," she orders. "We need to finish this now." Kale works beside her, his jaw clenched as he struggles to stabilize the power relays. For a moment, their eyes meet, and the unspoken tension between them flickers like a spark. But then he nods, a silent acknowledgement of their shared goal. They don't need words to understand what's at stake. The energy transfer reaches its peak, the conduits glowing with a blinding light. The ship shakes violently, its hull creaking under the pressure. The crew holds their breath, their hands gripping the consoles as the nebula's storms rage around them. For a moment, it seems the ship might not survive. And then, just as the systems begin to fail, the energy surges into the nebula, its chaotic swirls of light and shadow slowly beginning to stabilize. The storm calms, its violent currents fading into a gentle, iridescent glow. The crew exhales in unison, their relief palpable. The bridge is silent except for the hum of the ship's engines, their steady rhythm a stark contrast to the chaos moments before. Lyra sinks into her chair, her hands trembling as she stares at the restored nebula. We did it, she murmurs, her voice barely audible. Kale steps up beside her, his expression unreadable. We did, he says, his tone quiet but firm. But it wasn't just you, it was all of us. His words are simple, but their meaning is clear. The journey has cost them more than they ever imagined, but it's also shown them the value of trust and unity. The crew watches the nebula in silence, its vibrant colors a testament to their efforts. The Starforge's remnants may be gone, but its legacy, and the lessons it forced them to learn, will shape their journey from here on out. For Lyra, the pull of the stars will always remain, but now she knows the true cost of chasing their secrets. And as the celestial harp sails into the calm, starry expanse, she feels a sense of peace she hasn't known in years. The journey isn't over, but for the first time, she's ready to face it, not as a seeker of power, but as a protector of what truly matters. The celestial harp glides through the now calm nebula, its engines humming softly as the chaotic storms fade into a serene, shimmering expanse. The crew moves with a quiet purpose, their faces etched with exhaustion, but also a newfound sense of relief. For the first time, in what feels like an eternity, the air on the bridge isn't thick with tension or fear. It's filled with the quiet hum of reflection and the soft murmur of voices as they begin the long journey back to known space. Lyra stands at the helm, her hands resting lightly on the controls as she stares out at the stars. The nebula's vibrant colors swirl gently around the ship, a stark contrast to the violent chaos they just escaped. Her mind is a whirlwind of thoughts, each one tugging at her in different directions. She thinks of the Starforge, of the artifact, of the choices she made, and the ones she almost didn't. She thinks of the crew, of Kale, of the trust she nearly lost, and the loyalty she never deserved. And she thinks of herself, of who she was when this journey began, and who she's become. Taking a deep breath, she turns to face the crew. Her voice is soft but steady, carrying across the bridge with a quiet authority. I need to say something, she begins, her gaze sweeping over the faces of those who have stood by her through everything. I made mistakes, big ones. I let my ambition blind me, and I put all of you in danger. I was so focused on finding the Starforge that I forgot what really matters. This crew, this family. Her voice cracks slightly, but she presses on. I'm sorry. For everything, and I'm grateful more than I can say that you stuck with me, even when I didn't deserve it. The crew watches her in silence, their expressions a mix of surprise and relief. Kale steps forward, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. For a moment, he says nothing, his gaze fixed on her. Then slowly, he nods. You're not the same person who started this journey, he says, his tone measured but not unkind. Back then, you were chasing something you thought would make you whole. But now I think you're starting to see what really matters. His words are simple, but they carry a weight that makes Lyra's chest tighten. She nods, her throat too tight to speak. The crew begins to murmur, their voices low but warm. Some nod in agreement, their expressions softening. Others exchange glances, their lingering doubts giving way to cautious acceptance. It's not forgiveness, not yet. But it's a start. One of the crew members steps forward, a faint smile tugging at the corners of their mouth. We've all made mistakes, they say, their tone gentle. What matters is what we do next. The words ripple through the group, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey they've shared and the one that still lies ahead. As the hours pass, the atmosphere on the ship begins to shift. The tension that once defined their interactions eases, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of camaraderie. Lyra moves among the crew, her presence no longer a source of unease, but a quiet reassurance. She listens more than she speaks, her gratitude evident in every word and gesture. Kale watches her from a distance, his expression thoughtful. He doesn't say much, but the sharp edge of his frustration has dulled, replaced by a cautious optimism. The journey back to known space is long, and the challenges they'll face are far from over. The Nebula's stabilization came at a cost, and the consequences of their actions will ripple far beyond the stars. But for now, there's a sense of peace, a fragile, hard-earned peace that none of them take for granted. The crew works together with a renewed sense of purpose, their movements synchronized and their focus unwavering. They've been through hell and back, and it's changed them all in ways they're only beginning to understand. As the ship sails through the calm expanse of space, Lyra finds herself standing at the helm once more. The stars stretch out before her, vast and uncharted, a reminder of the endless possibilities that lie ahead. She knows the journey isn't over. There will be new challenges, new dangers, and new choices to make. But for the first time, she feels ready to face them not as the person she was, but as the person she's become. And as the crew settles into the rhythm of their journey, she allows herself a small, quiet smile. The stars may have led her here, but it's the people beside her who will guide her home. The celestial harp glides through the calm expanse of space, the crew settling into a fragile but steady rhythm as they chart their course toward home. The nebula's vibrant colors fade into the distance, their beauty a stark reminder of the chaos they narrowly escaped. The mood on the ship is subdued but hopeful, the weight of their journey still fresh in their minds. Lyra sits at the helm, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead, when a sudden alert breaks the silence. Incoming transmission, a crew member announces, their voice tight with unease. It's from the fleet. The words send a ripple of tension through the bridge. The crew exchanges glances, their expressions a mix of surprise and apprehension. Lyra's heart sinks as she realizes what this means. The fleet, their homeworld's military force, has come to investigate the nebula's instability, and now they've found her. She takes a deep breath, steeling herself for what's to come. "Open the channel," she says, her voice steady despite the knot of dread in her chest. The screen flickers to life, revealing the stern face of the fleet's commander. His gaze is sharp, his expression unyielding as he surveys the crew. "Captain Lyra," he begins, his tone crisp and formal. "We've been monitoring the nebula's instability. Explain your presence here and your involvement in this crisis." The weight of his words hangs heavy in the air, the unspoken accusation clear. Lyra steps forward, her hands clasped behind her back to hide their trembling. She knows there's no escaping this moment. "Commander," she says, her voice calm but firm, "we were drawn to the Nebula in search of the Starforge, an ancient artifact believed to hold unimaginable power. I won't deny that our actions contributed to the instability, but we also stopped it from collapsing entirely. If we hadn't intervened, the Nebula's destruction would have spread far beyond its borders. The commander's expression hardens, his skepticism evident. You expect me to believe that your reckless pursuit of this Starforge somehow saved us from disaster. His tone is cutting, his disbelief palpable. Lyra meets his gaze, her resolve unwavering. I don't expect you to believe me, she says, but the evidence is there. The nebula is stable now, and the threat has been contained. We did what we had to do. The bridge falls silent, the tension thick enough to cut. The crew watches the exchange in uneasy silence, their loyalty to Lyra warring with their fear of the consequences. Kale steps forward, his voice low but firm. Commander, with all due respect, the captain's telling the truth. We didn't set out to cause harm. We were trying to uncover something that could change everything. And in the end, we did what was necessary to protect not just ourselves, but countless others. The commander studies them for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he exhales sharply, his tone softening slightly. Your actions may have prevented a greater disaster, but they were still reckless and unauthorized. You'll return to the homeworld at once to face a formal inquiry. Be prepared to answer for your choices. His words are final, leaving no room for argument. Lyra nods, her shoulders sagging slightly under the weight of his words. Understood, Commander, she says, her voice quiet but resolute. We'll comply. The screen goes dark, leaving the crew in stunned silence. The weight of what's to come settles over them like a heavy fog. Lyra turns to face her crew, her expression a mix of guilt and determination. I know this isn't what any of us wanted, she says, her voice steady, but we'll face it together. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it as a team. The crew nods, their expressions a mix of resignation and resolve. They've been through too much to falter now. As the celestial harp adjusts its course toward the homeworld, the mood on the bridge shifts. The journey ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. They've faced worse. And whatever consequences await them, they'll face them as they've faced everything else together. The stars stretch out before them, their light a reminder of the endless possibilities that lie ahead. For Lyra, the path forward is fraught with challenges, but it's also an opportunity, yet to make amends, to rebuild trust, and to chart a new course. The Starforge may be gone, but its legacy, and the lessons it forced them to learn, will shape their journey from here on out. And as the ship sails toward the homeworld, Lyra knows one thing for certain. The journey isn't over. It's just beginning. The celestial harp touches down on the homeworld's bustling spaceport, its hull still marked with the scars of its journey. The crew steps out into the warm, familiar air, greeted by a crowd of onlookers and officials. Cheers erupt as the people hail them as heroes, their names already spreading through the news feeds as saviors of the Nebula. But Lyra feels no joy in the celebration. As she walks through the cheering crowd, her mind is heavy with the truth of what really happened. The mistakes she made, the risks she took, and the lives she endangered. The weight of her choices presses down on her, a constant reminder of how close they came to disaster. The next day, Lyra stands before the ruling council, the grand chamber filled with the stern faces of those who hold her fate in their hands. The air is thick with tension, the silence broken only by the soft hum of the holographic displays. She takes a deep breath, her hands clasped behind her back to hide their trembling. Honored council members, she begins, her voice steady but laced with vulnerability. I stand before you not as a hero, but as someone who made grave errors in judgment. My obsession with the Starforge drove me to take risks that endangered my crew and destabilized the Nebula. I allowed my ambition to cloud my responsibility, and for that, I take full accountability. The council listens in silence, their expressions unreadable. One member leans forward, their voice sharp with skepticism. Do you expect us to overlook your recklessness simply because you claim to have learned from it? Lyra meets their gaze, her resolve unshaken. No, she says firmly, I expect nothing but the truth, that my actions were driven by a desire to uncover something greater, but at a cost I failed to consider. I can only hope that my honesty today reflects the growth I've gained from this experience. The council erupts into debate, their voices rising in a cacophony of conflicting opinions. Some argue for severe punishment, citing the danger Lyra's actions pose to countless lives. Others defend her, pointing to the fact that she and her crew prevented the Nebula's collapse and averted a far greater catastrophe. The room is divided, the tension palpable as the council members weigh her fate. Lyra stands quietly, her heart pounding but her expression calm. She knows she can't change the past, but she also knows she's not the same person who set out on this journey. The Starforge's allure has faded, replaced by a deeper understanding of what truly matters: her crew, her homeworld, and the responsibility she holds as a leader. Whatever judgment the council passes, she's ready to accept it, not as a burden, but as a step toward redemption. Finally, the council falls silent, their decision made. The head of the council rises, their voice carrying the weight of authority. Captain Lyra, they say, their tone measured, your actions were reckless, but your honesty and the results of your efforts cannot be ignored. You will face consequences for your choices, but we also acknowledge the courage it took to stabilize the Nebula and the growth you've demonstrated in owning your mistakes. The words hang in the air, a bittersweet resolution to the storm that has defined her journey. As Lyra steps out of the council chamber, the weight of the decision settles over her. The path ahead is uncertain, but for the first time, she feels a sense of clarity. The Starforge may have been a dream that nearly consumed her, but it also forced her to confront the person she was and the person she wants to become. And as she looks out at the bustling streets of her homeworld, she knows one thing for certain: the journey isn't over. It's just the beginning of a new chapter, one she's ready to face with humility, resolve, and the unwavering support of those who stood by her side. The council chamber falls silent, the weight of their decision pressing down on the room like a heavy shroud. Lyra stands tall, her expression calm but resolute, as the head of the council delivers the verdict. Captain Lyra, the council leader, begins, their voice steady and unwavering. We have reached our decision. While your actions were undeniably reckless, there is no denying the courage and resourcefulness you and your crew displayed in stabilizing the Nebula. For this, we will spare you and your crew from severe punishment. However, you will be stripped of your ship, the Celestial Harp, and forbidden from ever returning to the Nebula. The words hang in the air, a bittersweet resolution to the storm that has defined their journey. Lyra nods, her shoulders straight despite the weight of the sentence. She knows this decision is more than fair. It's a chance to start anew. The celestial harp, her home for so many years, will no longer be hers. But as she glances at her crew, their faces a mix of relief and quiet determination. She realizes she's found something far more valuable than a ship or even the Starforge's power. She's found the trust and loyalty of those who stood by her, even when she didn't deserve it. As the council members rise and file out of the chamber, Lyra steps into the sunlight of the bustling city outside. The crew gathers around her, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and cautious optimism. Kale stands a few paces away, his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on her. For a moment, neither speaks. Then, with a deep breath, Lyra crosses the distance between them. Kale, she begins, her voice soft but steady. I know I've made mistakes. I let my ambition blind me and I put you, all of you, in danger, but I want you to know that I've learned from this. I'm ready to do better. Kale studies her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nods. We all made mistakes, he says, his tone measured but not unkind. But we also made it through, together. The words are simple, but they carry a weight that makes Lyra's chest tighten with gratitude. For the first time, in what feels like forever, the tension between them eases, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of understanding. The crew begins to murmur, their voices low but warm. Some nod in agreement, their expressions softening. Others exchange glances, their lingering doubts giving way to cautious acceptance. It's not forgiveness, not yet. But it's a start. One of the crew members steps forward, a faint smile tugging at the corners of their mouth. What's next? They ask, their tone gentle but curious. The question ripples through the group, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey they've shared and the one that still lies ahead. Lyra takes a deep breath, her gaze sweeping over the faces of her crew. We may have lost the celestial harp, she says, her voice steady, but we haven't lost each other, and that's what matters. We'll find a new ship, a new purpose. We've faced the stars and emerged stronger. Now, it's time to chart a new course. The crew nods, their expressions a mix of determination and quiet hope. Kale steps forward, his voice low but firm. Wherever we go next, he says, we'll do it together. No more secrets, no more risks we can't handle, just us and the stars. The words hang in the air, a quiet promise that binds them all. As they begin to plan their next journey, the weight of the past begins to lift. The Starforge's allure has faded, replaced by a deeper understanding of what truly matters. The people beside them, the trust they've rebuilt, and the journey they'll face together. The stars still call to Lyra, but now she hears them differently. Not as a siren's song of power and discovery, but as a reminder of the lessons she's learned and the bonds she's forged. The journey ahead is uncertain, but for the first time, she feels ready to face it. Not as the person she was, but as the person she's become. And as the crew gathers around her, their laughter and voices filling the air, she knows one thing for certain. The stars will always guide them, but it's the people beside her who will light the way. Lyra stands on the observation deck of her new ship, the starlight horizon, her hands resting lightly on the railing as she gazes out at the endless expanse of stars. The view is familiar, yet it feels entirely different now. The nebula glows faintly in the distance, its swirling colors a quiet testament to the chaos she and her crew survived. She takes a deep breath, the cool air of the deck filling her lungs, and lets her mind drift back to the journey that brought her here. The memories come in flashes, moments of triumph, moments of despair, and the choices that define them. She thinks of the artifact, its whispers once so compelling, now silenced. She thinks of the Starforge, its promise of power and knowledge, now lost to the void. But most of all, she thinks of her crew, their faces, their voices, their unwavering loyalty, even when she didn't deserve it. They're the reason she's standing here now, not as the person she was, but as someone stronger, wiser. Kale steps up beside her, his presence as steady as ever. He doesn't speak at first, just stands there, his gaze fixed on the same stars. When he finally breaks the silence, his voice is soft but firm. "You've come a long way," he says, his tone carrying a quiet pride. "We all have." Lyra smiles faintly, her eyes still on the horizon. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replies, her voice tinged with gratitude. "Any of you?" The crew has gathered on the deck, their laughter and chatter a warm counterpoint to the vast silence of space. They've rebuilt their lives, piece by piece, after the loss of the celestial harp. The starlight horizon isn't just a ship, it's a symbol of their resilience, their unity, and their determination to keep moving forward. As Lyra looks at them now, she feels a swell of pride, not in herself, but in the family they've become. The nebula's glow catches her eye again, its colors shifting gently in the distance. It's a reminder of all they've been through, the mistakes made, and the lessons learned. She knows she'll never reach the Starforge, and in a way, she's glad for it. Its power was never meant to be hers. The true treasure, she realizes, lies not in the stars themselves, but in the people who stand beside her, ready to face whatever lies ahead. As the starlight horizon glides smoothly through the void, Lyra feels a sense of peace she hasn't known in years. The stars are no longer a siren's call, pulling her toward an unattainable dream. They are a guide, a promise of endless possibilities. She knows there will be challenges ahead, new dangers, new discoveries, new choices to make. But for the first time, she's ready to face them, not as a seeker of power, but as a protector of what truly matters. The ship's engines hum softly, a steady rhythm that echoes the calm in her heart. The crew's voices rise and fall around her, a living reminder of the bonds they've forged. Lyra takes one last look at the nebula, its colors fading into the distance, and turns away. The journey isn't over, it's just the beginning, and as the starlight horizon sails into the unknown, Lyra knows one thing for certain. No matter what the stars bring, she won't face it alone.